Oklahoma. Senator Lankford, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thanks. Good to see you again.
Great to see you. You have been a longtime supporter of defending Ukraine. In fact, back in 2022, you co-sponsored legislation that called for the U.S. to protect Ukraine, quote, before, during, and after the invasion. Based on what you witnessed in the Oval Office, Senator, are you concerned that the United States is turning its back on Ukraine?
No, we're not turning our back on Ukraine, nor should we. Putin is a murderous KGB thug that murders his political enemies and is a dictator there. And so we've seen that. We've seen his aggression. Countries around him have seen that. Obviously, the Ukrainian people have seen that. The challenge is now we're at a stalemate. This is a World War I-like trench warfare, and it is best to be able to get to at least a pause. And what I hear President Trump saying over and over again is, we need to get to a stop in fighting, find some resolution. I understand Zelensky is rightfully concerned that Putin has violated every single agreement he's ever signed and that he can't be trusted. He's looking for some kind of security guarantees, which the French and the UK are saying they want to put troops in. But we need to get these two folks at the table, get to some kind of resolution to something that may look like North and South Korea for a long time and have a line where people are looking at each other, but not an active war.
As you know, extraordinarily, the Kremlin is cheering what it saw in the Oval Office. Let me ask you about something I just discussed with Speaker Johnson, which is that Senator Lindsey Graham has said that President Zelensky may need to resign in order for this peace process to move forward. What say you, Senator? Do you think President Zelensky might need to resign?
I don't agree. I'm not interested in calling on the resignation of other world leaders. I didn't like it when Chuck Schumer asked for Netanyahu to be removed. I don't like it when other members of the Senate asked for Zelensky to be removed either. Quite frankly, I think that would spiral Ukraine into chaos right now, trying to find who is the negotiator to bring an issue to peace. If you remember in that press conference in the Oval Office just on Friday, it began with President Trump saying that he is a friend of Zelensky. He is interested. They've had good conversations. I think they understand each other, and that obviously there are differences where Zelensky wants more in the way of some kind of security guarantees. The United States is not willing to be able to put troops on the ground. We're not willing to do that, but President Trump obviously met with Zelensky first. Everybody was talking about Trump is going to work with Putin. He had foreign ministers working with the Russians. He wanted to meet personally with Zelensky first. I think that's a very clear sign of where he is and where he stands on this. But he wants to get both sides of the table and get an end to the fighting and the death.
A lot of people are curious, Senator, about the bigger implications of this moment. Are you concerned that what happened in the Oval Office, the fact that the United States sided with Russia and North Korea in that UN vote, for example, the fact that President Trump accused Zelensky of starting this war, could that be sending a signal to China that it has a green light to invade Taiwan?
No, it sure should not send that. If China somehow receives that, they're receiving the exact wrong message, that the United States stands with our ally Taiwan, and we, like the rest of the world, want to see peace in that region and to continue to be able to have relationships all across that region. But China should not misread this at all. What President Trump is trying to do is trying to get both sides to the table. This is the interesting challenge that has not been done through this entire war in the last 3 years, to be able to get both sides and then to be able to figure out how to be able to get a stop to the fighting and then to be able to keep the fighting stopped. That's the next part. That's the biggest next challenge.
It is. We'll have to see if these talks get back on track. I do want to switch gears, talk about the budget bill. You just heard me discussing that with the speaker as well. Of course, what passed the House deals with the president's deportation plan. It extends the 2017 Trump tax cuts. The argument that the speaker or other House Republicans are making is that in order to get tax cuts done, the best chance is to do it together in this, what is called a big, beautiful bill. Do you agree? Will you commit to voting for the bill as it stands?
Well, no one has actually seen the bill as it stands. What we passed right now is what's called the budget framework. It is just we should sit down and start making a plan. It is a very general statement of we need to be able to preserve our tax cuts. We need to be able to actually reduce spending. Now let's sit down and figure out how to be able to do that. So there is no real plan on the table at this point. Now it's time to make the plan. That was literally step one on it. And the key things, you've already outlined some of them. We've got to be able to deal with border security. I think a lot of what's been lost this week, even in all the multiple headlines that are out there, we had a day this week we had less than 200 people try to illegally cross our border. Less than 200. It was just a little over a year ago. There were 12,000 people a day that were illegally crossing our border. So we've had a dramatic shift in what's happening on our southern border. There's a lot of work that's happening, as everyone has seen, on trying to be able to get the economy back on track, to be able to push back on fentanyl coming across our border from the north and the south and with China. So there's a lot of things that are spinning in the air right now. It's a matter of trying to be able to figure out what's the right thing and what stage is every part of the negotiation in.
Well, in terms of what may or may not be in the final package, some of your Republican colleagues have said point blank they are not going to support legislation that cuts Medicaid in any way. So, Senator, let me put this question to you. Would you support a bill that makes cuts to Medicaid or any other entitlement?
So I heard the speaker mention this as well. No one's talking about cutting benefits on this. They're talking about how do you actually cut fraud. Between Medicare and Medicaid, we have, according to government records right now, the Government Accountability Office, almost $100 billion in what they're called either fraud or waste or just we don't know where it went. $100 billion is a lot of money. I think there is an expectation for the American people that they're saying, when is someone going to step in and actually going to fix that? So I think that's a reasonable thing to do. If in your credit card, if somebody swipes your credit card 1,000 miles away from you, you get a warning immediately that says, hey, someone's trying to use your card on that. But in the federal government, you can have $100 billion in waste and no one notices year after year after year. That has to come to a stop. Now, there's lots of other areas of efficiency on this, but that's been an area that both Republicans and Democrat presidents have worked on for years. What this president is saying, it's time to actually solve this, not just talk about it.
I have to ask you, Senator, about something that right now is impacting a number of states, including your neighboring state. A child in West Texas died from the measles this past week, tragically. Senator, it's the largest outbreak in the state in nearly 30 years. The majority of those who are impacted are not vaccinated. Measles was, of course, declared eliminated back in 2000. So, Senator, let me ask you, will you encourage your constituents to get vaccinated against the measles?
No, will I? Do I? I already do encourage people. I've been vaccinated for measles. My children were. I'll one day when I have grandchildren, I'll encourage them to get vaccinated on this. I think it's very important. What we've seen in some of these areas are folks that don't agree with the vaccine, and that they have the right to be able to do. Some of them are in religious communities that don't believe in vaccines at all on it. So I understand some of that. We're respectful of that. But we also understand the measles vaccine has been around for a long time. It is a deadly disease, especially for infants. So it is incredibly challenging for us to be able to keep this under control, to make sure that we're protecting children that are 1 year old and younger that can't get the vaccine. They're not eligible to be able to get it because of their age and their development at that point. So what we've done as a culture is try to be able to keep measles down to be able to protect those that are exceptionally vulnerable in those infants.
All right. Well, I know we'll continue to all watch that closely. Senator James Lankford, have a lot more questions for you, but we are out of time, so please come back soon. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.